Hi, here we are again. It's Susie from BoatTIME. In this episode we are going to meet James from the Portumna Castle, and he wants to tell us everything about the history and stories around this castle. Hello James, it's so nice that you spent your time for us to explain us something about this beautiful old building, this Portumna Castle is the name, yeah?
Yeah. So thanks Susie for interviewing me. Portumna Castle, it's a castle that lies on the banks of the River Shannon. It actually dates to over 400 years old, okay?
Wow.
So it was finished by 1618. Built by a man named Richard Burke, who was the fourth Earl of Clanricarde, and his English wife Frances Walsingham. Now the Burke family themselves were of French Norman descent, would have came over to Ireland over 800 years ago in 1185. William de Burgo came over with Prince John, was granted lands down in Munster, so down in South Tipperary, East Limerick, and was also granted lands west of the Shannon in Connacht. He didn't take up that grant. Those lands then were re-granted to a son of his, a man named Richard. Now Richard is a very popular name in the Burke family, so there's a huge amount of Richards in the Burke family, so it can get very confusing. But this first Richard, he became Lord of Connacht, so between the grants and military conquest, he really established the Burkes west of the Shannon. So they're a very powerful family, had their lands in Munster, now had their lands in Connacht, but they also acquired lands in Ulster. So at one stage in the medieval period, they had more lands than the monarchy in England.
Yeah, that's good for them, bad
good for them, bad for everybody else.
For the others, I think they were a bit jealous.
Yeah, they probably were, but even amongst the Burkes themselves, there was actually jealousy sort of developed amongst the Burkes themselves, because they became a very powerful family, so there was a lot of infighting amongst the Burkes themselves. So in 1333 there was a civil war amongst the Burkes. So here in Connacht, basically the Burkes divided in two. So basically we had the Burkes of Mayo and we had the Burkes of Galway, So the Burkes of Galway became known as the Clanricarde Burkes. And Clanricarde means the family of Richard. And that was named after the first Richard that settled here in Galway, So as I say, it still remained a very powerful family. Their power base was in Loughrea, so that's where they sort of ruled their territory from. I suppose then we're going along the timeline where we're going into the time period of King Henry VIII, that time, I suppose, in Ireland, I suppose there was a lot of turmoil, there was a lot of wars, there was a lot of fighting amongst chieftains, etc. like that. They were very, very territorial. Sometimes people hadn't even legal titles to their land, so people would rob land on one another. So a lot of skirmishes, etc. like that. So King Henry VIII, I suppose, really he devised a great plan, or known as surrender and regrant. So basically, if you were a landowner here in Ireland, whether you're of Norman descent or whether you're a Gaelic chieftain, you would surrender your lands to King Henry VIII. He would grant you back the lands, possibly giving you more lands with that, but importantly, he gave you a legal title. So that means
lady or lord.
Exactly, So in this case, earls or dukes or whatever. So basically, I suppose it would benefit people that took up in that grant, people like the Burkes that did take up in it, because they were getting the protection of King Henry VIII, but they were subjected then to English law. and English customs, etc., like that. So it was a clever plan by King Henry VIII, I suppose, to anglicise the Irish over here, or those of Norman descent. So families did take up in it. We had the Butlers took up in it, and the Burkes here actually took up in it. So the Burkes, a man named Ulick Burke, he was re-granted his lands, and he got the title the first Earl of Clanricarde. Okay, so from that point onwards, up to 1916, we had 15 Earls of Clanricarde.
50? Oh, that's...
Yeah. So quite an amount of so I suppose, look, we'll talk about maybe some of the more important Earls, or some of the more interesting sort of characters, I suppose. Yeah. So basically, it was the fourth Earl of Clanricarde, Richard, okay, as I said, Richard. A very popular name. Yeah. But Richard married an English lady named Frances Walsingham. And
I've seen on the sign she was from Essex, is that right?
Yeah, she was from Essex, yeah. And she was a lady that actually was married twice prior to marrying her Richard here, okay? She was married to Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, who actually was beheaded by Queen Elizabeth, okay? He fell out of favour with Queen Elizabeth. He was her right-hand man, but he, as I say, he ended up in bad terms with Queen Elizabeth. She was also married to a man named Sir Philip Sidney, who actually died in campaign in Holland, okay? So she was a very influential lady, but later then she married the fourth Earl of Clanricarde.
So that was the third husband of her.
That was her third husband, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So
very busy.
And a very interesting lady, like a very influential lady. Richard himself, I suppose, he was educated over in England. He learned military ways over in England, but came back here to Ireland, and I suppose it was during the 9-Year War when there was a big rebellion with the O'Neills and the O'Donnells up the north, and the pinnacle of that was the Battle of Kinsale. So Richard fought at the Battle of Kinsale, and he was actually knighted on the battlefield. He fought for Queen Elizabeth, okay? He fought against the Irish, okay? And allegedly he had taken out 20 of the enemies, okay? He was a mighty warrior on the battlefield. But saying that, as I said, he married Frances. Seemingly they toured around Europe, visited big houses and gardens. So inspired by what they saw, came back to Galway here and decided, look, we'll build a new house. So decided to build Portumna Castle on the banks of the River Shannon, okay, where the River Shannon goes into Lough Derg. Now, interestingly, Richard and Frances very rarely visited this house. If at all they visited, they built also a manor house over in England, so that was their prime residence. Over in Summerhill in Tunbridge in Kent. So that was their main residence, okay. But later,
and this one is was for summer holidays, or
basically sort of summer holidays, or so I suppose. Look, it was a seat for administration. He would have had agents here looking after his big estate here. But saying that, later Earls did actually reside here, so we do see later Earls actually living permanently at Portumna Castle, going to and fro to England, etc., like that. So I'd say Richard built this. The house here itself is a semi-fortified manor house. So really, it's a hybrid between a manor house and a tower house, I suppose. Okay. You have the comfort of a house with defensive features of a castle. Inspired by, I suppose, the French chateau and the English manor house, but has those defensive features: musket holes, crossbow loops, machicolation. So still fairly defensive. The original windows were a lot smaller, the walls around it were a lot higher, but basically, I suppose, reflecting Irish society at the time. Irish society was still very warlike, okay? So there was major changes here, I suppose, in the late 1700s, the 13th Earl, John Thomas, so basically he carried out major renovations here. He made the windows a lot bigger in the house. He reduced the defensive features. He had on a formal entrance, gate lodge, etc., and did some landscaping on the grounds here as well. So major changes. And I suppose they were short-lived, because in 1826 there was a disastrous fire here. So
like so many other castles and houses around, big houses here.
Big houses seem to be always subject to fires.
I have the feeling that every castle or church has burned one time in its life in Ireland. But why?
Well, I suppose even with this castle here, I suppose later in Irish history, a lot of them were purposely burnt down, but this was actually an accidental fire.
A kitchen fire?
more now, the story was that it was a kitchen fire, but through research we found out that it was actually up in one of the bedrooms upstairs that a lighted candle ignited some bed linen, and the whole house went up in flames. And it was actually
classic problem.
Yeah. Insurance companies didn't want to know houses like this. So that was during the reign of Ulick, the 14th Earl. He was actually on his way back when this disaster struck. So rather than restore the house, he decided he would build a new house known as the New Castle. So he left this building in ruin. In ruin,
like it was, like after the fire.
So he decided.
And then he went where the new house?
So basically the new house was only built half a mile west of here. It was referred to as the New Castle. It was a French Gothic style. Now he was building it for his eldest son, Lord Dunkellen. Now Lord Dunkellen himself was actually fighting in the Persian Wars, and he developed an illness of the kidneys, came home, but unfortunately later passed away from that. So both the father and the mother were basically heartbroken, that their eldest son had died, their heir had died, so they never finished off the New Castle. So you're talking around 1860s here, later then the house itself, even though it was unfinished, it actually was burnt down purposely, so this was during the War of Independence in 1921. So we do see a lot of houses being burnt down then because there were a sign of landlords, etc. like that. So that was burnt down, and later then in the 1950s a local priest wanted to build a new Catholic church, so he took all the cut stone from that New Castle and he built the Catholic church in Portumna.
From the stones?
From the stone from that New Castle,
So there's nothing left?
Nothing left, no. There's a car park there for the Forest Park, but basically if you want to see the New Castle, it's in the form of a church now, It's like Lego brick, So the 14th Earl, as I said, he had lost his eldest son, so when he passed away, the estate then went to his second son, Hubert George. So Hubert George became the 15th Earl of Clanricarde. So he was the last Earl. Also referred as the Miser Earl. Didn't like spending money. Lived over in London. He was your typical absentee landlord. Now he had over 56,000 acres of land here in Galway.
So he was nothing, never here.
He was never here. He had agents again looking after the lands for him. So I suppose in the late 1900s, or sorry, the late 1800s rather, there was a lot of agitation on his estate here. There was like a mini famine in 1897. So some landlords reduced rents, but our Miser Earl wouldn't reduce rents, and there was a lot of evictions on this estate here, particularly up towards Woodford, which is on the west coast of Lough Derg here, it was over 200 evictions there. So also we've seen the setting up of the Land Commission, so the Land Commission, basically what they done, they would have bought up all these big estates and they would distribute the lands amongst the tenants, so tenants would pay maybe something like a 21-year rent, but after that then this holdings were theirs, But saying that, our Miser Earl didn't want to part with an inch of his land, so he was really a mean here, So basically there was a lot of attention on this estate here. There was a lot of media coverage. A lot of journalists were coming over here reporting on what was happening on this estate, So much so that there was laws enacted known as the Land Acts, So their purpose really was, I suppose, it was to benefit the tenants, reduce rents, etc. like that, make things favourable towards tenants. Our Miser Earl here, he wouldn't give an inch of his land, So basically wouldn't give an inch, so the Land Commission actually took him to court, So there was lengthy court battles right up to 1915, By 1915 the Land Commission won out and basically seized the estate and left him at 1,400 acres, So still
big.
exactly like
still big.
So I suppose our Miser Earl then, living in London himself, as I said, never set foot here in Ireland. Contemporary sources tell of a man that dressed in rags, frequented the parks over there, a very eccentric individual, never married. I wonder why. All right, even though he had lots of money, but he had a sister named Elizabeth, and his sister Elizabeth married into the Lascelles of Harewood House. So it's up in northeast England. So his sister married into that family. Now his sister's grandson or his grandnephew was a man named Henry Lascelles. Yeah, so the story goes Henry Lascelles was in London. This was in 1915. So this was the time of the breakup of the estate here, okay? Seemingly, Henry Lascelles bumped into his miser granduncle and they got chatting for half an hour, okay? Parted company, never saw one another after that, okay? In 1916, the miser Earl dies and he leaves everything to Henry Lascelles, his grandnephew.
His grandnephew, okay.
So, so his grandnephew was left this. He was left to 1,400 acres, the house that we're in here. Okay. This house here, the new castle that I earlier mentioned, but also left him, now this was 1916, he left him £2.5 million in 1916.
Oh, in 1916, £2.5 million. That's
that's a huge, so
huge.
In today's terms, if you take into account inflation, you'll be talking over 195 million euros. Okay,
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm looking after all my granduncles now.
Oh, okay.
I advise everyone should do that. So Henry Lascelles himself then, Henry went on, he married Princess Mary, okay? She was the daughter of King George V and Queen Mary of England. So she would be grandaunt of...
he married up.
But he married up, and that was sort of a tendency for the Burkes as well. They always married well. I know he was a descendant of the Burkes, but they always sort of married well. Even our 14th Earl here, he would have married Harriet Cannon, whose father would later become Prime Minister of England. So they always married very well. And basically they were shunned upon if they didn't. They had to marry wealth and power. And that's how I suppose a family like that. They were so successful. They were here for 800 years, like so. They had to sort of marry well. So very, very clever family, But Henry then, as I said, married Princess Mary. They came over here in 1928. So they had intentions of doing up the house here. It didn't happen due to maybe a variety of different reasons. Maybe, I suppose, the relationship between Ireland and England at the time, political reasons, etc. like that. But saying that, they were received very well here when they did come to Portumna. The newspaper clip shows photos of people all out in the streets greeting them when they came here. So the
people liked them,
People liked them, people liked them. And seemingly Henry Lascelles was very good to the people that actually worked on his estate here as well, good. So really made up for his granduncle, I suppose. But the Lascelles themselves, they held this estate, they held it till after World War II. 1948, I suppose, there was a global economic decline after that, and their own estate in England came under financial pressure. So basically, I suppose, decided to sell off the Portumna estate, and the Irish government bought it for £12,000, which was a reasonable sum of money.
So they gave it back to Ireland.
Exactly. So sold it back for a nominal fee. Exactly. So the Irish government then, what it did, most of the estate then was handed over to Coillte, which that's the department that looks after our forestry. So we have walking trails and cycle trails, which is on the coast of Lough Derg here. So when you come in off your boat, you can actually access
we have seen this new path.
New pathway, exactly.
To Donald.
Exactly. Which is brilliant. Which is great. So it gets people circulating around the area, and then the house and the grounds here themselves, then they were given to the OPW, who look after all our historic buildings, national monuments, etc. like that. Okay, so.
Renovation.
For renovations, restoration.
Like a museum or so for the public.
So I suppose this house itself, it's a unique enough house, so it was very much worth renovating. So the OPW started those renovations, started in the 1960s, 1968 I think to be precise, but really it was the 1980s, 1990s that we saw substantial work being done on the house here. So by 1994 they had the roof and the chimneys reinstated on the house, and it was opened up to the public. So it's an ongoing project.
No water in the building.
No water in the building. So it's a weatherproof building. The gardens here were all renovated, done up as well, and you might have seen down where the coach house is, they have tea rooms there, visitors facilities,
the side building over there.
The side building over there. So it's a constant ongoing work, and I suppose the work that's carried out here, both the materials and the craftsmanship that's used, is, I suppose, it's very in keeping with the authentic work that was done on the castle here originally, So it's work in progress, and hopefully down the road I will see more floor levels on the castle itself opened.
That would be great.
So and that really brings us up to date, I suppose, on the castle itself. So as I say, on the banks of the River Shannon, just on the north shores of Lough Derg.
Yeah. So the renovation, you said they want to leave it like it was to make it similar than before. So the walls are staying like this, or do you put some color on? Is that planned?
No,
or, some stuff here inside, maybe chairs or beds or tables or something.
I suppose the initial thing was to make the house weatherproof, which has been done here, and I suppose make it obviously as a visitor attraction, open up more floors. I know the basement is open up to the public, which is down below us here. We can have a look at that afterwards. But that's by guided tour only. Okay, so I suppose really is to get the whole structure in place, etc., like that. So there may be plans down the road then maybe to furnish the house or whatever. And we do have a small little bit of furniture, but I suppose really importantly is the architecture that's very important in this house here. So we work
to save the building to make it safe, to make it weatherproof and proof for the future.
Exactly, do you know what I mean? So maybe down the road they may decide then to advance that and maybe furnish the house or whatever.
Or one room or so.
Even one room or something like that.
That the tourists can see how it was in earlier days, how the people lived.
Exactly, like, do you know what I mean? So I suppose, like as I say, the basement was open this year, and hopefully maybe the end of this year or maybe next year possibly to hope to open up the first floor, the next floor. So that's their plan, to get floor by floor, and then probably maybe down the road then, at a later stage then, they might look at sort of maybe doing something with the rooms or something like that. And of course it's not just the house as well, you have the grounds here, the gardens have to be looked out. There's we have a gate lodge there. It's a surrounding area. So hopefully, but it's been constant work going on here since 1968. So
such a huge building.
Huge
building. Lot of work.
It takes a lot of work.
But I think the substance of the walls from the earlier days are really good.
It's a solid house, like pure, like it withstood that fire, like, do you know what I mean? So basically, well, at least
and
they had the shell
so long without a roof.
Without a roof, it's just the thick walls, like, so it really stood the test of time, like.
So much is left.
That's it. And I suppose when you look at some of the panels here, it gives you an idea of actually the state of the house. Like there was actually trees growing up in it and all that. But as I say, luckily we had the outer walls to work on. And even the gardens themselves, like the gardens were totally in ruin, walls were down, etc. And I suppose even after the fire, maybe a lot of stuff was pilfered or taken. Do you know what I mean? When houses go into neglect, people obviously come in and say, "Oh, I'll take that stone there. That I can build a wall with that or whatever."
For souvenir. Okay. Great. Thank you for that. And then now we are going a bit round to look at to get a closer look to all those things. Okay, great.
Brilliant.
So
okay.
Thanks,
Susie. Okay.
Thanks. So, James, we are now in the basement. It's a bit cold in here, but no problem.
So it is a lot cooler down here, but I suppose historically it wouldn't have been that cool because you see all these fireplaces. So we're down here in the basement, and this was the kitchen area. So
very important.
Very important. Okay, and this was opened up this year. Okay.
Great.
Basically, we're standing beside the well here. This well would be contemporary with the house here, so over 400 years old. So very important to have actually your source of water in your kitchen. But also importantly, I suppose, if this house ever came under siege, that you had your fresh supply of water inside. Okay, so you could withstand siege a lot longer. Okay.
And this water is coming from the Shannon or from the ground, or
it's basically coming from the ground. It's a spring. A spring of water. Coming up from the ground. So at some stage we don't know what happened to this well. Okay. But certainly by 1750, when we look at floor plans at the time, we see that this well is actually covered in, and we see actually that there's a wall there. You might see the track there in the wall, but there's a wall coming across here. Okay. So it became disused sometime after or rather before 1750. But saying that, they had wells in the courtyard, so they probably used those wells then. Plus in the 1700s, things were a lot quieter here in Ireland, so do you know what I mean? It didn't matter if your water was outside. Okay, you had the hassle of bringing it in, so there was less wars, etc. like that. So inside this, then you would have had a larder, for storing the usual kitchen stuff, and inside food, etc. like that. Now they're just marked as larder, so I presume food, etc., cutlery, saucepans, whatever else is needed, typically in a kitchen. And inside that, in the corner, then you would have had the head cook's bedroom or living quarters. Exactly.
Just beside his working place.
Exactly. Cool. So she would have had a bed there, a table, and a chair. Okay, so like she was lucky. She had her own private quarters, because some servants didn't have their quarters at all. So the head maid, the butler, they would have all had their own quarters. Okay. But if you were just an ordinary staff member, you probably just had, wherever you worked, you just basically throw down your mattress filled with straw and you lay there for the night. So if you had servant boys or girls here, they might have lay in front of the fire here. If you had servants down the stables, they would have slept in the stables, etc. like that. So it was only for the hierarchical sort of servants that they had their own sort of quarters. Okay. So then we can see the series of fireplaces here. So it really highlights, I suppose, a very industrious kitchen here. Okay. And hopefully at some stage that we'll have some of the maybe replicas of the contemporary equipment that would have been used here. Like you would have had fire cranes here, with your various pots, etc., for obviously cooking. And possibly you would have had a spit here as well that was turned for cooking meat. Exactly, for roasting meat. So you might have had a young boy.
Pork or
whatever, exactly, like pork or beef or whatever. They had a great herd of deer here as well, so they may have cooked some venison as well. The deer park here, very tasty indeed. So a very industrious sort of place. Also, I suppose, as I say, you had a young boy then turn the spit, and we know over in England actually they had what was known as a spit dog. So where they had a dog in a sort of like a hamster on a wheel sort of system, where the dog actually turned the wheel. And it was a mechanism, a dog, in a wheel, and turned the mechanism which turned the spit, But I'd say there's no evidence of that here, All right, probably had a young boy here doing that, a huge area. Above, at the top, then we would have had the pastry room. There was a pastry room that's highlighted on the plan as well. So you would have had 2 beehive ovens there. Sort of nearly like our modern pizza oven. So that was for cooking breads, pastries, etc. like that. And again, like our well, at some stage, those beehive ovens were removed, and they may have had, in the late 1700s, they may have had some sort of, I suppose, solid fuel cooker there. They may have had, we're not too sure, we're still trying to
modern,
Exactly, they're getting very modern, because we see sort of holes in the water, or in the wall there rather, that may have sort of allowed an airflow into some sort of solid fuel cooker or something like that. So we're still sort of researching on that element. Also, we see here, we have these, I suppose, what would we call them, corbels here on the wall, the whole way up along. So I suppose they've created great intrigue with people. What were they, etc. Some people suggested they may have been used for shells, for holding stuff or whatever, but personally, I think there was, as I mentioned earlier, there was major renovations here in the late 1700s. The windows were enlarged, etc. like
before,
that.
The windows and
everything. So everything changed in the house.
A bit,
And I suppose when we came in the front door, we were on a certain level, and we went through the passageway. The floor seemed to be higher. Went higher up there. So I'd say what happened here, they actually hired the ceiling here in the kitchen area.
And that was the original ceiling?
That was the original.
Maybe?
Original corbels supporting timbers or whatever. And at that stage... You can
see it everywhere,
You can see it the whole way up along. And I'd say even those windows may originally be only little slits, So they made them bigger to let more light into the kitchen area. Because this house was actually fully functioning in the 1700s, 1600s, a lot of wars going on, etc. Like 1700s, this house was fully functioning. We've seen the 13th Earl invested a lot in the restoration, or in the renovations of the house here, rather. Above us then we see these 2 cannons. So very interesting. These 2.
They are not original in the kitchen,
No. I do tell people they're salt and they're pepper cellar. One is for salt, the other is for pepper. That's
good.
So I think it's just a safe. Obviously, it's a safe place just to house them for the moment. They were in storage.
Inside, not outside in the
exactly.
rain. Yeah.
So at least people can come down and see them, okay?
Yeah.
When we look at old photos of the castle here, we see that some of the, actually there was 8 or 9 cannons found here around. Eight or 9 cannons, cannons of these. Some were used as bollards outside the steps as we come up to the castle, okay?
For protection for the castle?
Probably protection, I'd say more or less for ornament, okay? Because when the 13th Earl, he renovated this, okay? He was a man, actually, he was a military man. He founded the 88th Regiment of Foot, which later became the Connacht Rangers, okay? So I'd say he acquired all these cannons, okay? And these cannons, they're sort of a mixed bag of cannons, okay?
Yeah.
Some were British, some were French Navy, and these ones were these were Finnbankers cannons that were made in Sweden. Okay. So they would date to 1680. Okay, so he had a mixture of cannons. So I say he acquired them.
So you found also German cannons? No,
not yet anyway. Not yet. We'll do more digging. Yeah. So basically, we reckon these 2 cannons, however they ended up here in Portumna Castle, certainly they probably were used at the Battle of Aughrim. Okay, so the Battle of Aughrim was, I suppose, the forces of King James II fighting William of Orange. Okay, you had the Battle of the Boyne, you had the Battle of Aughrim. You had the siege of Limerick, etc. So at some stage we were actually brought here to Portumna Castle, okay? The carriages were actually made by our OPW carpenter back in the 80s or 90s. So very interesting and created a lot of interest with visitors here to the castle themselves. And interesting.
It's really interesting.
Very interesting. Those cannons themselves, actually, you would load a cannon with 1.5 pounds of gunpowder, which was actually plunged down into the cannon. Your cannonball was put down. These are 6-pounders. That's the weight of the cannonball. So basically, that was put down then, wedged down.
And do you know how far you can?
1,000 meters. So
no.
They did a range of 1,000 meters.
That's
okay.
Far.
So at a certain stage, then they reach a distance and they bounce along the ground and would take people over. Okay. Like warfare was horrific. Like, and some cannonballs were actually put in a chain. So you had a pair of cannonballs coming out on a chain, swinging around like that, would take out a lot of people. So I don't know which was worse, on the battlefield or actually working in the kitchen here. Okay.
Both.
So there are cannons. We can see this window here. Okay. So
this is an old one.
So this is actually, this shows you, I suppose, the devastation of the fire here. Okay. So this was on the 2nd floor, and it shows the intensity of the fire. Okay. The way that fractured the limestone window, really fractured it. Okay. So we've our stone cutter here, master stone cutter, David Little. So he reconstructed that window frame just to highlight to people, I suppose, the intensity of the fire here itself. Okay. And we have the north side of this basement, which we can't access at the moment, but basically that was very important because that was the wine cellar. That's where all the barrels of wine were housed, ale, etc. like that, and possibly butter. It was a lot cooler. So that's our basement here.
Yeah, cool. This is a skeleton of a dog?
So this is a skeleton of a little dog here. His name is Fury.
Okay, he has a name.
He has a name and everything,
Was it a he or she?
We're not actually quite, we're not sure We're not sure actually.
But it's a he, okay.
But refer to him as he, maybe not, okay. But basically he's a famous dog around Portumna. A famous dog, He's reputed to have saved the girl's life, okay. So the old story, the old folklore, I suppose, tells of a girl that was actually leaning out a window here at Portumna Castle. So possibly just above us somewhere, okay? A girl overleaned, and the folklore tells us that she fell out the window. But it tells you that it was an Irish wolfhound came bounding over. A very dramatic story, okay? So as the girl was falling, this dog ran in under her and saved her life, okay? So
so she was falling onto the dog?
Yeah. So basically she was falling and the dog seen her falling, so he dived in under to save her life, okay?
Wow.
So that was the story. That was the local tradition. That was the story for over 200 years. And I suppose during renovation works here at Portumna Castle, we had archaeologists here who were doing their digs, okay, trying to find out about the past. So basically, the porch that we're standing in, there's a plaque on the wall dedicated to Fury. So everyone assumed Fury was this wolfhound that saved the girl's life. So the archaeologists decided that they would dig under the plaque and hopefully find the remains of this giant Irish wolfhound that saved the girl's life. But when they got down to the grave, to the coffin was rotted away, of the timber coffin, but they didn't find the remains of a wolfhound. They found the remains of this little terrier whippet type dog.
It looks not like a wolfhound.
Not like not even a wolfhound's pup. No. So
it's a small one.
It's a small one. So basically, I think it was this dog that saved the girl's life. But of course, we like to exaggerate stories here in Ireland. Okay, so over time it became an Irish wolfhound. But basically, this happened in 1797, so over 200 years ago. So basically, it was this little dog that saved the girl's life. So maybe now whether he went running over to save her life or the poor little dog happened to be sunning himself lying down on the ground here, and the girl actually landed on top of him, and but the poor dog was killed in the process. But nonetheless, he actually saved the girl's life. So a famous story around Portumna.
James, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
It was a really great experience for us to see all these stuff, to the old building, then how far the renovation went. Thank you so much for your time. It was so nice.
Thanks, Susie. It was a pleasure having you here. Okay, and
for all this explanation.
No problem.
You're really great.
No, look, and enjoy the rest of your trip. Okay? It's a pleasure having you here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. See you, Susie. Okay.
Bye now. Bye.